Chapter 4457. Miss Pei, you can only write for yourself. You can't represent everyone. You're happy but they might not be. Pei Cici was speechless even though she had a lot to say. But these words were undoubtedly a joke in front of Tangua. She was the one who applied for the negotiation this time. Because she saw that her men were so happy, especially when they were pregnant and busy with those things. Her heart ached for them, so she wanted to do something for them. She thought that if she persuaded Miss Tang seriously, she would definitely understand. However, that was not the case. She was humiliated, but she could not refute. Miss Tang, sorry to disturb you. Pei Cici was unwilling to admit her mistake. No matter what, I feel that it's not desirable to gain great power at the cost of losing the ability to reproduce. You said it yourself. This is what you think. Miss Pei, does your family live in the sea? You're so nosy. There are thousands of kinds of people. Why do you think that we think that fertility is more important than dignity? Tangua had never thought of persuading Pei Cici to wake up. She only wanted to use this opportunity to scold her. Pei Cici still didn't feel that she was wrong. She left gloomily. After that, another person came to negotiate with Tangua. Of course, they all failed. The women's movement in the country continued. It gradually moved from small places to larger cities. Regardless of whether women who voluntarily gave up their fertility to gain great power joined. This made the women's movement become more and more intense. Almost no one could stop it. In Tangua and Yi Tian's plan, they would bring countless rainbow fruits with them every time they arrived at a city. Tangua had mixed in a lot of paper puppets. The system had already helped her collect the family situation in each city. When they arrived at a city, they would go straight to find those women who had been oppressed and were in despair. And some young girls who were currently receiving education in the women's cultivation base. These young girls who were willing to resist could be considered one of the main forces of the women's movement this time. In the beginning, many oppressed women were still afraid of failure, so they didn't dare to do so. Later on, when they saw that the matter was getting bigger and bigger and more people were coming, they also joined in. This was especially true for those women who had given birth to one child after another. Their bodies were almost depleted and they didn't have many years left to live. Moreover, they weren't respected by their families. They joined without looking back. Since he was going to die anyway, he might as well die like this. At least he could breathe a sigh of relief before he died. This was a women's movement that could no longer be stopped. The GPS wristwatch had completely lost its signal. If there was anything, the system would help to block the communication signal. The president and the others were in a terrible fix. But there was nothing they could do. They arranged for some paranormals to stop them, but they found something terrible. These powerful women were something that paranormals couldn't do anything to. Due to the emergence of superpowers, the world had just recovered. Many countries were still researching the evolution of superpowers, and weapons had yet to receive much attention. Therefore, to deal with this group of powerful women, it was better to use superpowered people than to use weapons. Someone suggested that they should attack them one by one and find the person in charge. Then they could promise good conditions. As long as they were satisfied, the other party would end all of this. Thus he could even lower the morale of these women. Chapter 4458. However, they had failed. Tangua had thought about this from the start, so the female representatives from all over the country were her paper puppets. When these paper puppets were all invited over, Tangua smiled. This time they had come for nothing. In fact, other than Tangua, the others were all paper puppets. They met the highest level of the country, the president and others. They sat in a huge meeting room. Many of these men, including the president, had big bellies and looked like they were about to give birth. Tangua also saw the gloomy Fuqiu and Tong Jinjun. Next, it was time for the president to promise them benefits and ask them what they needed. Tangua said, "The freedom and human rights of women should be the same as the rights of men. We are all humans, so don't treat us differently. Also, restore the freedom of marriage and abolish the system's mating system. Also, close the female cultivation base. The education of men and women should be treated equally." The others had the same request. The president seemed to be considering that pregnancy was not a good feeling because they were men. When the time came, they would have to perform a C-section to get the baby. This was really a terrible result. "I can give you such rights. As long as you can make those people behave, all of you here will be treated fairly. You can even work here in the future," the president said. Tangua shook her head. Mr. President, you must be old, so your ears are a little hard of hearing. I'm not talking about us, I'm talking about all of us women. We need to be treated this way. As for working here, I think it will depend on one's ability. Mr. President, I heard that after pregnancy, the body will feel a little uncomfortable and it will affect one's reflexes. Actually, you can take a break first. The president was so angry with Tangwa that his face turned red, and so were the others. They were talking about people saying that they were pregnant. This was simply a humiliation to them. This time, of course, the negotiation ended without any results. However, the women's movement was still going on and showed no signs of stopping. Wherever they went, half of the women joined the group. If this continued, those who did not join would probably waver. During the second negotiation, Tangwa said, "Mr. President, the current situation is gradually becoming more fair. After the apocalypse, the number of women decreased, but the appearance of the rainbow fruit solved the crisis between men and women. Women can also possess great power. And men can also get pregnant and have children. This can be considered as the heavens giving equal rights to men and women. Why can't we just go with the flow?" The president was so angry that he fainted. What a good go with the flow, but it sounded like there was nothing wrong with it. Actually, it doesn't matter if Mr. President doesn't agree because the world is empty. The few hundred years after the apocalypse caused the population to plummet. We can go to other places to survive. We don't have to stay here. Now that men can also give birth to children, it is absolutely fair. There is no point in imprisoning women. Of course, this was just a casual remark from Tangwa. This place was well equipped, so she couldn't give it up. She just wanted to compromise with these people. If negotiations failed, then they would start by conquering the city. She wasn't just saying. If one wanted absolute rights and benefits, one had to stand at the top to have the right to talk about fairness. Chapter 44:59. The president and the others were all thinking about it. The women's movement was indeed very big, but they didn't take the initiative to kill people. Basically, it was the ability users who made the first move. Therefore, they wanted to wait for the child to be born so that they would have the energy to do this. But Tangwa couldn't wait. While they were delaying, Tangwa had already sent a message to the puppets to occupy the city. She also asked the system to help block the communication signal, so it was already a few days later when the president and the others knew that the city had been occupied. In just a few days, the women had occupied many cities and controlled the entire city. The president and the others were finally a little scared, and in another negotiation he compromised. But Tangwa didn't want to compromise. She smiled and directly controlled the people in the huge conference room. "What do you want to do?" The president looked at Tangwa in surprise, his face pale. Tangwa sat in the president's seat. "Do you think I'm joking? I never joke. In fact, the best way to let women obtain the rights they deserve is to overthrow the current rule. You're stalling for time, and so am I. Occupy the city's leadership, control the country's arsenal, and control all the network systems." For this time, Tangwa used up all the paper puppets in her hands. Of course, she didn't want to let this place become a river of blood again. After all, she couldn't afford to hurt it anymore. The paper puppets could help her solve most of the problems. She knew that there was still a hard battle to fight from the resistance of the male ability users. However, she was ready and was not afraid at all. She didn't want to be the president. It was too tiring, so she left it to Sister Yi. It seemed that there were only some changes in the upper management of the Yi family. It was nothing. Fortunately, everything was not perfect yet, so it was still easy for her to do this. The quiet door of the conference room was suddenly pushed open. Yi Tian appeared, and behind her there were many people. Yi Tian walked to Father Ye's side and called, "Father." Father Ye's eyes were filled with tears. He bowed his head and said, "Tiandan, go and do it. Your aunt is still waiting." Father Yi was still very excited. He had finally waited for this day. If his sister was still alive, she would be very happy. Yi Tian came to Tangwa's side, unable to calm down. "Since Mr. President and all of you are pregnant, I believe that you are no longer qualified for your current jobs. This is a matter of national importance, so I suggest that we start the election of a new president now." After saying that, Tangwa voted for Yi Tian. Then Mr. Yi also stood up and went over to Yi Tian. To Mr. President's despair, many people stood up one after another and voted for Yi Tian. This shocked and terrified them. They could not believe that there were so many people supporting Yi Tian. This was the power of the Yi family as well as their common goal. Like I said, not everyone likes the current ruling style. Mr. President, you don't have to be nervous. We're just re-electing a young, capable and qualified president, not abolishing you. This is called abdication. Tangwa was all smiles. At this time, Fan Jing, Fan Hai and Liang Haolin, who were Pei Sisi's 3 husbands, suddenly rushed toward Tangwa. Unexpectedly, just as they rushed in front of Tangwa, they were slapped to the wall by her. She looked at the 3 people who rolled down from the wall and slowly walked in front of them. She looked at them condescendingly and said, "The power of women is also very strong. It's just that we haven't found our own opportunities before. I hope that you can get to know the women of today. Let me tell you a secret. Not only am I stronger than you, but I can also seal your supernatural abilities. Are you scared?" Tangwa's palm landed on Liang Haolin's lower abdomen and sealed his supernatural ability. She had started to cultivate when she first came to this world, and now she was very strong. Could be said that she could do whatever she wanted in this world. A mere supernatural ability user could not do anything to her. She had also sealed the special abilities of Fan Jing and Fan Hai. Then she sealed the supernatural abilities of all the people who were unwilling to vote for Yi Tian to be the president. "I won't do anything to you. I just don't want anyone to destroy the fairness of the election." Mr. President was so angry that he vomited blood. Was this called fairness? Do you think that I'm unreasonable? Tangwa glanced at Fu Qiu, the president, and the others who were full of anger. Because this is strength. When you have strength, you can oppress women. When we have strength, we can also get what we want. Don't you think so? The peak. Chapter 4460. The situation was hopeless. Everyone present was speechless. Especially the president, who was forced to abdicate. Even if he objected, what could he do? The power was no longer in his hands. Fu Qiu and the others were also anxious. They did not expect Tangwa to be so bold as to control all of them during the negotiation. They did not expect her to be so powerful. They also did not expect the Yi family and so many other families to go against their ideas. If they had known that they would end up like this, they would not have negotiated with Tangwa. They would have killed her at all costs. But it was too late to say anything now. The abilities of Fu Qiu and the others were all sealed by Tangwa. Unless there was a cultivator like her who knew how to seal her abilities, or they were stronger than her. Otherwise, she did not want to seal their abilities. The 5 of them could only be ordinary people for the rest of their lives. Is there anyone else who opposes Miss Yi Tian becoming the new president? Tangwa's sudden voice brought everyone back to reality. They looked at Yi Tian, who was sitting in the president's seat. This woman was hidden deep in the Yi family. Who would have thought that she had such thoughts? Yi Tian also felt that this matter was unreal. When Tangwa discussed this matter with her, she thought it was a fantasy. She did not expect Tangwa to succeed. She was not greedy for power, but only by sitting in this position could she change the future of women. It seems that no one opposes Miss Yi Tian becoming the new president. Then I announce that Miss Yi Tian is the new president of the Eastern country. Tangwa's lips curved. When she said this, she glanced at Yi Min, who was at the door. Yi Min was acting as a bodyguard today. In fact, his ability was very powerful, but he rarely used it. Seeing his sister being pushed to the position of president by the person he liked, Yi Min felt that he was dreaming. Those who had their abilities sealed were in a difficult position. How could they oppose it? Just like that, Yi Tian became the new president of the Eastern country. When the news was not announced, the whole world was shocked. A woman became the president of the Eastern country. Was this a joke? However, for the next few days, various news from the Eastern country made countries all over the world believe that this was true. At this time, the existence of the rainbow fruit was known by everyone in the world. Women all over the world were searching for the rainbow fruit. Back then, Tangwa had scattered a lot of rainbow fruit seeds all over the world. She couldn't care less. The only thing she could do was to spread the rainbow fruit all over the world. It was up to the women of other countries whether they could stand up or not. But she believed that as long as the women in the East stood up and set an example, the women in other countries who were willing to stand up would do everything they could to stand up. It was impossible to walk this path without bloodshed. After Yi Tian became the president, the first thing she did was to announce the protection of the rainbow fruit. No matter if it was a man or a woman, they couldn't be forced to consume the rainbow fruit. Whether they consumed it or not depended on the individual. However, she advised all women to consider carefully, because once they took the rainbow fruit, they would lose their fertility. Tangwa proposed a compromise. If they couldn't abandon the woman who gave birth to their offspring, they could choose to get married and have children first, and then use the rainbow fruit to gain power. Chapter 4461. As soon as this statement was made, many women were able to accept it. However, many women were very decisive and directly took the rainbow fruit. For them, they had already suffered enough. Giving birth. They didn't want to give birth at all. Of course, there were also some women who didn't want to lose their fertility in order to obtain great power, even if they didn't have to keep giving birth. Yi Tian proposed to abolish the genetic matching system. No one objected because those who objected had their superpowers sealed by Tangwa. The marriage autonomy was proposed again and passed by all. However, those who didn't want to vote were deprived of their right to vote by Tangwa. The women's cultivation base was closed. Women and men could now enjoy the same rights and receive equal education like before the apocalypse. Tangwa was now the national women's minister. She specialized in solving women's problems. In any family, as long as a woman wanted to break off her marriage with her current husband and wanted to be free and pursue the abuse of her husband, she would take care of it. Therefore, she was very busy. In the beginning, some husbands wanted to imprison the women at home to prevent them from going out to complain. However, some women reported them in the end. Naturally, the women in the family were liberated. Later, Tangwa asked all the members to investigate all the families in the country. In fact, the system had already collected information for her. Some families with problems could be directly asked when the time came. As long as the woman was willing to break away, she would save her at all costs. As for the woman who was unwilling, there was nothing she could do. However, if she could figure it out one day, she could still be saved. Yi Min was now the Minister of Culture. However, he wasn't very busy at the moment. The whole country was still busy and chaotic. He had become Tangwa's subordinate. Yi Tian was even busier. She wanted to abolish all the laws that oppressed women. With Tangwa's help, it was very simple. She only needed to propose it and it would be passed by all votes. Of course, some male superpowered men would start a riot. However, they were quickly defeated by the paper puppets arranged by Tangwa. This was the benefit of being powerful. Now both men and women were powerful. It was not a place where reason could be used. In the end, it all depended on whose fist was bigger. Unknowingly, the first batch of pregnant men was about to give birth. She didn't know if Tangwa and Yi Tian did it on purpose or not, but they didn't repeal the law that prohibited abortion for the time being. It wasn't that they didn't want to abolish it, but they didn't plan to do so for the time being. Fu Qiu and Tong Jinjun were in the same delivery room. Pei Sisi and the other three men were waiting outside. For the first time, she had a very strange feeling. Previously, she was the only one inside while the others were outside. Of course, giving birth was still painful, but when she thought of the person she liked, she still felt happy. In Pei Sisi's mind, Fu Qiu and Tong Jinjun should be happy too, right? After all, this was the fruit of their love. Little did he know that the faces of the two people inside were filled with humiliation. Even though the man could only perform a C-section, it still made them extremely upset. They were so angry that they wanted to kill someone. When the child was taken out, they were not happy at all. Instead, they looked at the cute child with hatred. It was as if they were looking at their enemy. When Pei Sisi saw the two children, she was very happy. However, she remembered that the fathers of the two children were suffering and hurriedly went in to comfort them. Chapter 4462. Basically, the first batch of men who got pregnant all gave birth to healthy children. Most of them had good genes, so their children were okay. Pei Sisi went into the ward to comfort Fu Qiu and Tong Jinjun, but they didn't look happy, which made her feel a little helpless. Pei Sisi sighed. She didn't expect that Tangwa would really succeed in overthrowing the previous rule. Now the eastern country had a female president and many of the previous rules were abolished. Women had regained their freedom. Pei Sisi was not very happy because the two people she loved had suffered a lot because of it. He felt a little complicated. Her 5 men's supernatural powers were still sealed, which was said to be done by Tangwa. Pei Sisi wanted to plead for mercy, but she remembered what Tangwa had said to her before. She didn't want to be scolded again. If the eastern country was peaceful, the rights of women and men could be guaranteed. In fact, supernatural powers were not so useful anymore. Wouldn't it be good without the side effects of supernatural powers? Of course, Pei Sisi didn't say that out loud, because these men with strong self-esteem would not accept such a result. She could only comfort them gently and take care of them, but it seemed that she couldn't go back to those happy times. It would take a long time for women to recover their ability to survive, so Tangua's task was not completed yet. Women had great power, but it was not enough. But these women who were willing to be strong learned things quickly. The information before the apocalypse that Yi Min had restored could be used at this time. Tangua showed the information to the women, hoping that they would be able to gain something from it. Gradually, some of the women were qualified for work. Young girls, like boys, could also receive the education they should have from a young age. As for Fu Qiu and the other men's positions, they were taken away by Tangua in a disguised way, and it was basically impossible for them to recover. Even if their families were powerful, they couldn't be compared with the Yi family's suppression, so they couldn't do anything at all. Everyone knew that Tangua was a very powerful woman. Not only was she powerful enough to slap a paranormal to the wall, but she could also seal the paranormal's supernatural powers. Therefore no one dared to provoke Tangua. Therefore, even though Yi Tian was newly appointed, no one dared to make things difficult for her. Yi Tian did not introduce any laws that exploited men. She only abolished and changed the laws that oppressed and were unfair to women. Just like the slogan of the women's movement at the beginning, they were not fighting for women's rights but for human rights. They were doing this because they did not want to be oppressed. When Tangua saw this, she knew that she had chosen the right person. Yi Tian looked like an extreme person, but she was not. Yi Tian's extremes were due to the fact that she could not use hard work to obtain women's rights. That was why she could only pick up unconventional methods and let them live with dignity. Everything was proceeding in an orderly manner. The rainbow fruit could not be destroyed. Every day there would be women obtaining great power through the rainbow fruit. This was already unstoppable. However, countless men avoided the rainbow fruit. Women who have taken it are infertile. Some women wish to consume the rainbow fruit after giving birth. This group of women was relatively rare. Moreover, they couldn't force couples to be paired up, so the marriage rate was very low. Of course, there were fewer and fewer children being born. Chapter 4463. Therefore, some people said that it was all because of the women's movement. It was all because women were unwilling to have children. In countless places, many men started the movement that women would cause the extinction of mankind. At this time, Tangua appeared. With just a few words, she put an end to this movement. She said, "Now only women have children. Men can do it too. Touch your conscience. Is it really women's problem that caused today's result? Isn't it the result of you cursing and oppressing women? The continuation of mankind is important, but this is not a reason to oppress women to have children. There's no saying that women can't have children. This should be based on their willingness, not just for the continuation of mankind. Besides, with the existence of the rainbow fruit, men can also have children." These men were so afraid of getting pregnant. How could they have children? In the end, they left dejectedly. They had forgotten that women nowadays could not change their minds with just a few words. Women who took the rainbow fruit were not weak and could not be provoked. Even if some men now had side effects because of the use of their abilities, they did not dare to do anything to women. The protection of women now was stricter than before. Moreover, women now were very strong. They were afraid that they would be beaten up by women before they could do anything. There was also a group of men who had eaten the rainbow fruit before. Something really happened. It might not be the women who got pregnant, but them. Over time, some men who were gay planned to find a male partner. Especially those who had eaten the rainbow fruit. They thought that there should be no problem with men being together. Not only would they not be beaten up by women, but they could also satisfy their needs. It was simply perfect. As for the continuation of mankind, was it so important? Because they could not oppress women, was the continuation of mankind so important to them? Of course not. No one would have thought that those men who had found a male partner and eaten the rainbow fruit would also get pregnant. However, the law that forbade abortion had not been abolished. They could only give birth with tears in their eyes. Not all women gave up the right to have children. Therefore, although there were few newborns, there were still some. Moreover, in some people's bones they still hoped to have a descendant. Some of the wealthier men even wanted to spend a lot of money to marry a man and have children. Even after the apocalypse, not everyone's life was easy. Later on, it became normal for men to have children and it was gradually accepted. In other words, The world had recognized that both men and women could have children and enjoy the same rights. It sounded very fair, but it had to be built on a voluntary basis. No matter if it was a woman or a man, they were not allowed to be forced. Over time, men realized that their rights and interests were not oppressed. They had the right to make their own choices and could not make a fuss. However, the current situation was that many men were able to control themselves and wouldn't make mistakes on impulse. This was because who knew if they had accidentally eaten the rainbow fruit? What if they got pregnant? 20 years later, the Eastern country was the first to abolish the ban on abortion. Since then, all the human rights of men and women were finally restored. Because at this time, the number of newborns born every year was already very stable. Chapter 4464. Tangwa was also the national women's minister, in charge of all women's affairs. Under her leadership, there were no cases of women oppressing men. In the past 20 years, women were constantly receiving all kinds of education. They lacked too much, so how could they have the time to oppress men? After 20 years, the education of women had gradually improved. Since Yi Min became the Minister of Culture, he gradually contributed to the recovery of the world's entertainment. With the recovery of the entertainment materials, many women who left their families and regained their freedom found good jobs. Now there were actors, live broadcasts, and all kinds of performance industries. People once again had countless ways to entertain themselves. Of course, not only women did these but also men. It all depended on one's ability. 10 years ago, Yi Min and Tangwa were married, and Tangwa was currently living in the Yi family. Today, Yi Min suddenly looked at Tangwa. He had an idea that he had never told her. "Why are you looking at me? Hurry up and say it." Yi Min quickly went over and hugged Tangwa's waist. He rubbed his face on her neck like a puppy. "Xiaogua, I plan to make a documentary." "What documentary?" Tangwa was interested. These years, Yi Min had made a lot of TV dramas and movies. Many of the scripts were figured out by the two of them. Of course, because both men and women had supernatural abilities, the films he made were more fantastical than before the apocalypse. Many scenes did not need special effects at all. With supernatural abilities and great strength, it could be done. "I want to make a documentary after the apocalypse. It will record everything that happened 20 years ago forever, so that the future generations will never forget those things." Yi Min liked the current world very much. He finally realized his dream. He had a career, a wife, and no children. This kind of third party was simply a winner in life. "Since you want to do it, let's do it." "Then let's do it." Tangwa naturally supported her lover's love. If it were not for Yi Min, the world's entertainment would not have recovered to the present in just 20 years. It was not much different from what she knew before the apocalypse. Some things were even better. "We need a lead actress." Yi Min glanced at Tangwa. "After choosing, my wife is still the most suitable. No one can act out your aura." "So, there's still Big Sister?" "No one can perform Madame Yi Tian's magnanimity." "I've convinced my sister." Yi Min smiled and kissed Tangwa's face. "I'm just waiting for you to agree." "I have no problem with that." Yi Min was so happy that she rolled around with Tangwa and kissed her face. 2 years later, a documentary about the post-apocalyptic world was released. The main actors were the president of the Eastern country, Madame Yi Tian, and the female minister, Tangwa. For a moment, everyone was both shocked and expectant. On the day that the movie was released, Pei Sisi also went to watch it. He went to see it alone. Her 5 husbands didn't go. Her children were busy with work and didn't come. She sat in the cinema and looked at the highly restored scene. It was also the first time she saw a scene that she had only heard of but had never seen before. Women were kept in captivity at home like animals. They gave birth to children one by one until they could no longer give birth and died. For the first time, Pei Sisi felt her scalp tingle. She heard the low crying sound around her. She looked around in confusion and saw that most of the people in the cinema were women. Their eyes were red. The summit. Chapter 4465. There were also a small number of men who were sighing and comforting the women around them. For a moment, Pei Sisi thought that this was not after the apocalypse, but before the transmigration. The men and women before the transmigration were relatively normal. Although there were bad men, there were also good men. Pei Sisi kept watching and saw Tangwa, who was more beautiful and dazzling than before, appear. Her eyes paused there and did not move away. "We are not fighting for women's rights but human rights." Give up? It's impossible to give up. I would rather die than give up. The continuation of mankind? The continuation of mankind is important, but it has never been to oppress women. If what's happening now is corruption and evil, then we can only overthrow it and start over. At the end of the movie there were all kinds of women smiling. Pacey walked out of the movie theater with a confused look. It had been 20 years even though the rainbow fruit was everywhere. She still did not eat it even though she did not have to give birth now. At first she did not want to lose her fertility. Now that the eastern country was very peaceful, women were very protected and did not need to be strong. Why did she eat it and hurt her body? Pacey returned home. It was the villa that Fuchio and the others had bought together. They had not been back for a long time. He could not remember the date. Her children used to visit her every week. She had 4 boys and 2 daughters. At first they were very close. Not anymore. Since when did they become so unfamiliar with each other? It was her eldest son who brought back a girlfriend who had taken the rainbow fruit. Women who had taken the rainbow fruit were infertile, so she was very opposed. She tried to persuade her eldest son, but he did not listen. The girl did not seem to care. In the end, her eldest son chose the girl. This made Pacey very puzzled. Without fertility, how could they be together and have children? Later, her second son got married and had a child. At first, she was very satisfied with her second daughter-in-law because she did not give up her fertility. She did not expect that her second son and daughter-in-law would get pregnant at the same time. In other words, her second son had taken the rainbow fruit at some point. Pacey could accept this. After all, in this world, it was not strange for men to get pregnant and have children. What she couldn't accept was that after the couple gave birth, her second daughter-in-law took the rainbow fruit and expressed her dissatisfaction. Now her second son and his wife didn't come back often. As for her third daughter, she was a girl with a lot of ideas. When she was planning to arrange her third daughter's marriage, the little girl said something shocking. She was going to use the rainbow fruit and didn't want to have children, so she needed to find a like-minded person. Pacey felt that her third daughter was crazy. She objected to all kinds of things and even locked her at home, not allowing her to go out. However, the third daughter asked for help from the Women's Association and was eventually released. From that day onwards, the third daughter never returned. I heard that she joined the army after taking the rainbow fruit. She also heard that the child's idol was Ms. Tang. Pacey bit into the food and felt a little uncomfortable. None of her children seemed to have the same thoughts as her and did not understand her painstaking efforts. A few days later, Tangua's research on the suppressant for the aftereffects of male superpowers was successful. Critics. Chapter 4466. Once injected with the inhibitor, the effect would last for 5 years. From then on, the problem that troubled men was solved. "You are indeed my wife," Yimin said happily. He had been the experimental subject for injections all these years. Now there were no sequelae at all. Maybe it was because there were too many injections. In fact, it was just that Tangua secretly gave Yimin a cheat. How could she let his body be affected? The reason why the inhibitor was developed at this time was that she did not have much time to stay in this world. "I plan to rest," Tangua said. "I have resigned from the position of female director. In addition, the laboratory has been handed over to a few outstanding students. They are competent." Yimin seemed to have noticed something. He was a little panicked and quickly hugged her. "Do you want to go to the hospital for a physical examination? I feel that you have been too tired in recent years." "I am very healthy." But Tangua was still dragged by Yimin to have a checkup. She was indeed very healthy. But he was still uneasy. Until one morning when he woke up and saw that she was about to disappear from this world, he suddenly collapsed. "Didn't you say that I am very healthy?" Yimin cried in front of Tangua. He was very sad. Tangua patted his face. "Why are you crying? How old are you? The wife that I finally coaxed is gone. How can I not cry?" Yimin cried even harder. Tangua's clothes were wet. He did not forget to rub his face on her body. Yimin cried for a long time. He was very selfish and did not call the Yi family. He wanted to be alone with his wife. In the end, when it was almost time, he called the Yi family. Tangua's death was very sudden. Many people could not accept it. After that, Yimin made a lot of documentaries about Tangua. Unfortunately, there was no perfect actress who could show her elegance. One day he looked at the pile of documentaries and lost his breath. No one knew how a powerful paranormal like him could lose his breath. Pei was a little confused when she saw the original color of the TV station suddenly become black and white. When she saw the news of Ms. Tangua's death, she was a little surprised. She was so young. She found that all the pages on the internet had become black and white. The next day, Pei received divorce applications from several husbands, hoping that she could sign them. Pei didn't want to sign it. In the end, she was sued and divorced from her 5 husbands. In the end, Tangua didn't release the seal on the 5 people, so they couldn't use their superpowers. Later on, Pei also heard about the situation of her 5 husbands. She heard that they were pregnant and had children again. For some reason she did not pay much attention to it. She stayed in the villa every day looking at the television with indifferent eyes. Madame Tang was the most played on it. She obviously didn't agree, but she couldn't help but look. She didn't intend to take the rainbow fruit, but she didn't object to her grandchildren taking it. That year her 5 ex-husbands' families were defeated. She didn't know how the 5 of them escaped to this villa, intending to rob the villa of its wealth. Pei watched them take away all kinds of valuable things, but she didn't have any reaction. Before they left, they glared at her fiercely, which made her a little confused. She remembered that she didn't do anything wrong. Why did they look at her with disgust? The next day Pei squatted at the door of the villa, looking at the beautiful rainbow fruit outside. She reached out her hand, but in the end she couldn't pick one. She turned back to tidy up the house. Geek. Chapter 4467. Hurry up. The customer will be here soon. Hurry up and wipe the table clean. As soon as Tangua woke up, she heard a woman's loud voice in her ears. The buzzing sound made her head hurt a little. She didn't have time to think about anything else. Out of instinct, she started to work like a machine and quickly wiped the table in front of her clean. In less than 5 seconds, Tangua had already reacted. But she didn't stop. Instead, she wiped the table and looked around. This should be a small noodle shop. It wasn't big and was just an ordinary noodle shop. On each table there was a menu from the restaurant. Was she a waitress in this noodle shop? She looked down at the apron she was wearing. It smelled a little bad with oil. But she didn't care. Now was not the time to think about it. She quickly wiped the table and looked outside. The sky was dark and there were people in 2s and 3s on the road. Since it was a noodle shop, the business in the morning was more important. Because the shop wasn't big, Tangua quickly wiped every table clean. Just when she felt that she could take a break, the first customer came. The first customer ordered a small bowl of noodles. The woman from before was sitting at the cashier's desk. She saw that she was not moving. She stopped at the cashier's counter and shouted at her to hurry up and go in to get the noodles. Tangua had to go to the kitchen and wait there. There was only a middle-aged man in the kitchen. He was cooking noodles. The noodles were cooked quickly. The middle-aged man put the cooked noodles into a bowl and added the minced meat that the customer wanted. This time Tangua didn't need to be reminded. She knew what to do and quickly brought the noodles to the customer. Before she could catch her breath, the customers came one after another. Her task was to carry the bowls out, clean up the leftovers and wipe the table. The cycle repeated. Cola literature, and she saw that the middle-aged woman was sitting at the cashier's counter collecting money. From time to time she would remind her to hurry up. She didn't move from her position for the whole morning. At this time Tangua thought that the original owner of this body was working and that she was a worker. She guessed that the original owner of this body met a harsh boss. In his mind he was planning to quit after today's work. He was so busy just now. Even the boss didn't help. It was very tiring. Speaking of which, it had been a long time since she transmigrated to a world where she was so busy. She couldn't do this work anymore. It was too tiring. Back and forth. She was dizzy. If it was a summer job, she could find another job to experience it. But the result was different from what Tangua expected. After a whole morning, there were basically no customers in the shop. The next peak would be between 11:30 and 12 o'clock in the afternoon. She could finally take a breather. She excused herself to go to the toilet. The couple in the shop glanced at the clean floor and table and ignored her. She assumed that there was no more work to do, so she could have some free time. She had thought that the original owner of this body was looking for a summer job to experience life, so she was quite serious about her work. She didn't expect the truth to be like this. Chapter 4468. The couple in the shop was not her boss, but her adoptive parents, Tang Xiuan and Li Xiaohong. And the role of the original host was equivalent to free labor. The original host's biological parents had to be mentioned. The original host's biological parents had some preference for boys. After having 3 daughters including the original host, they still wanted a son. They made a decision to send the original host who had just been born. After a while they found out that the adoptive parents who had never had a child were Tang Xiuan and his wife. At that time Tang Xiuan and his wife had been married for 4 or 5 years, but they had never been able to conceive a child. Li Xiaohong was also a shrewish woman, so Tang Xiuan did not dare to divorce her. So they decided to adopt the original host. At first they did intend to raise her as their biological daughter and they liked her very much. The original host lived a good life in her adoptive parents' home for 3 years. When she was 3 years old, Li Xiaohong was pregnant. At that time the couple was overjoyed. After having their own child, the original host who had no blood relationship with her biological parents naturally did not like her that much. They ran a small noodle shop with a good reputation. In their view, this was their child's future property. The original host who was only 3 years old was a burden to them. She was someone who robbed their child's property. Even if they raised a dog, it had to eat and drink, right? Even if it ate, it was their child's money. The original host was still a person. He had to spend money and go to school. In the future there would be many places to spend money. Thinking of this, the couple was distressed. The original host was more and more unpleasant to the eyes. When the original host was 3 years old, Li Xiaohong taught her to wash her own clothes. From a young age she instilled in her the idea of taking care of her younger siblings in the future. No worries. She also chased her from a spacious room to the smallest room in the house. In her adoptive parents' home, the master bedroom was the largest. The 2 other bedrooms were about the same size. There was also a room that was supposed to be a study room. The original host was chased to this place. She was young and old, so she did not know what this meant. After her younger brother Tang Tao was born, the life of the original host became worse. At a young age she had to take care of her younger brother. When the original host was 5 years old, Li Xiaohong gave birth to another daughter, Tang Lulu. She occupied the other bedroom that the couple had been keeping. At this time the original host had to take care of her younger sister and clean the house. When she grew up she would take care of almost all the chores at home. When the original owner was very young, Li Xiaohong and her husband instilled in her the idea of taking care of her younger siblings. She was the older sister and was born to serve her younger siblings. She had to do all kinds of chores and her younger brothers and sisters were making trouble. The original owner didn't have any extra time to study. In addition, under the constant attacks from the couple, his confidence had long been shattered, and his entire person had become gloomy. Her grades were average and she was not well liked. No one paid much attention to her and she did not have many friends in school. Even though she didn't continue to go to school after high school, no one asked her what was going on. At present, the original host had already graduated from high school a year ago and had been helping out at the couple's noodle shop. The couple didn't want to hire any more employees. They felt that the original owner was very useful. For the time being they didn't plan on marrying her off. The original owner was easy to manipulate. Even if she hired an employee they might not be so hardworking. She also had to pay them a salary. They were not willing. As for raising the original owner, it was simple. Once in a while he would give her some money and give her some food. That was enough. Critics. Chapter 4469. According to the couple's idea, the man who proposed marriage to the original owner when she was in her 20s should not be a good man, but he should be able to give a good betrothal gift and make a lot of money for the couple. The original owner's fate changed because of a phone. It was a phone that Tang Lulu had discarded. The things she used since she was young were all discarded by Tang Tao and Tang Lulu. In this phone the original owner saw many wonderful worlds. Finally, a smile appeared on her gloomy face. She learned how to surf the internet and play games. Through the internet she also learned that her situation was not right. Because of her personality, she was not willing to communicate with others and no one would pay attention to her. Her adoptive parents also told everyone that this child was not sensible and had a bad personality. After seeing the world of the internet, the original owner also yearned for a free life and wanted to control her own fate. She started to resist, but it did not work well at first because she was very apprehensive. After all, they were her parents. But she knew that they were not related by blood. She also heard the couple say that she was an ungrateful person and that they should not have adopted her. They also said that when she was pregnant, they should have sent her back to her biological parents' home. The original owner finally understood why she was not living well. She felt that she did not owe her adoptive parents anything. Even if she owed them in the beginning, she had done all kinds of things for more than 10 years and had not spent much of their money. She had already paid them back. She decided to leave this family and look for her biological parents. Finding her biological parents went very smoothly. Furthermore, her biological parents' family even accepted her and treated her politely. Especially her biological mother. She hugged her in pain and said that she regretted adopting her. She did not expect her to suffer so much. 90 minutes. The original owner was moved. She felt that these were the parents who were really good to her. At least, her biological parents never beat or scolded her. They only said nice things. She had forgotten why her biological parents gave her away. Now she needed the warmth of her family and automatically ignored the bad things. Her biological parents' home was not big. The original owner had saved up a little pocket money and decided to go out, so she did not have the nerve to stay at home. When she left, her biological parents gave her some money. She was very touched and always remembered it. The original owner had a lot of work and had a high school diploma. She could work as a clerk, but the salary was low. Coupled with her personality, she didn't get along well with many people. Others felt that she was not easy to talk to and was a gloomy person. Because she needed to save money for her future and her parents, she was stingy and unhappy. Everyone thought that she was calculative and didn't like her. No matter what she did, she was never liked. For more than 10 years he had grown up under the torment of his adoptive parents. He was not good with words and did not know how to get along with others. He was especially bad with words. Even if she had good intentions, others would still feel uncomfortable listening to her. Over time she was even more unwilling to give her advice. By a freak combination of factors, the original host had made a game to accompany her. It was a technical game. Her gaming skills were very good. She had heard that as long as she helped the boss or helped the boss make an account, she would be able to earn money. She could still communicate with people on the internet, so she was able to do this job smoothly. Since she was going to play with them, she also opened a live stream room. While playing with them, she also showed it to others. Her income couldn't be compared to those entertainment anchors, but the money she earned from accompanying them was still quite a lot. At the very least, it was more than any other job she had. Critics. Chapter 4470. After earning money, the first thing she thought of was her biological parents. She told them the good news. Her biological parents were all nice to her, whether it was her biological parents, her 2 sisters, or her youngest brother. Every time she talked to them, she felt happy and felt that she had a family. Therefore, she didn't feel anything when her family wanted to spend her money. She just needed a place to stay, food to eat, and clothes to wear. She gave the rest of the money to her biological parents. Actually, she didn't know it at that time. It was because she longed for kinship that she neglected some bad things. When her adoptive parents found out that she had earned money, they made a fuss. However, her biological parents helped her fight back. They even spread the news of how her adoptive parents treated her back in the countryside. Perhaps they felt embarrassed and asked for a sum of money. The original owner felt that it was time to settle things. She had to pay for it herself and not her biological parents. She gave them a sum of money and settled things with her adoptive parents. Then she happily moved her household register back to her real home. Later she became a playmate. Most of the money from the live stream fell into her biological parents' pockets. If nothing had happened, she might have lived in the dream that her biological parents made for her for the rest of her life. The second change happened because of her kindness. Her personality was still the same. She was gloomy and didn't talk much in real life. She wasn't very likable. However, she wasn't a bad person. On the contrary, she was a kind person. Therefore, when she saw someone being cheated, she didn't hesitate to stop it. At this time, she was already a little famous on the internet. Of course, it was only in the circle of game streamers. She loved ebooks. She wasn't good with words. She only used her own way to chase away the cheater. She had seen this person who pretended to be pitiful and beggar many times. She didn't want to see those students being cheated. Therefore, her attitude was fierce and she even said harsh words. She didn't expect that this scene would be captured by another streamer who reported the truth of society. However, this streamer knew her and felt that she had discovered the truth. She felt that this was her true self. The content of her livestream was to expose the pretentious people in this world. That day, this streamer exposed the matter. In the livestream world, the original owner's situation was called a flop. At that time, the overwhelming scolding made her break down. When the adoptive parents found out about this, they immediately went online to complain. They found the streamer who took the video and exposed that the original owner was an ungrateful wretch. The original owner couldn't work anymore. She planned to go home and find another job. Her biological parents told her that there was no one at home to stay. Although their tone was gentle, the original owner could still feel the disdain in their tone. But after a few days, their attitude became eager again. It turned out that they wanted to introduce someone to the original owner. The original owner wasn't that gullible little girl anymore. She wasn't the kind of girl who would marry just because someone told her to. That man was nearly 40 years old, and he was willing to give his biological parents 300,000 yuan as a betrothal gift. This was a huge sum of money. This time she retorted. She didn't expect that her biological parents' attitude would change so much. They scolded her for not knowing what was good for her. She actually opposed such a good marriage. It was simply a waste of effort. The scolding came from the internet. Her biological parents, her adoptive parents, her classmates, and the people she knew that she had a bad attitude and was unfilial. Chapter 4471. The host finally broke down. Her last bit of kinship was what kept her alive. Now that it was gone, she couldn't live anymore. She only needed a little bit of sincerity, and she could stubbornly continue to live in this world. However, there was only blame, hatred, and disdain. There was no concern. She felt that she wasn't suitable for this world. She chose a sunny day and started a live broadcast. She played a game and didn't look at the scolding on the screen. She said a lot in that game, as if she had said everything she wanted to say in her life. There were many people watching and even more people scolding her. Those who were familiar with her also felt that she had a lot to say today. After a game, she said, "Thank you everyone. Goodbye." When she closed the live broadcast, she added, "I didn't do anything wrong." The people watching didn't pay attention to these two sentences. But a few days later, they heard that she had passed away. At the same time, a suicide note appeared. "In this world, there shouldn't be anyone who cares about me because everyone hates me." I was also confused. Since no one likes me and no one is sincere to me, why do I still exist in this world? Although no one misses me, I don't want to cause trouble for everyone. This world is very exciting. I once wanted to go to many places and see all kinds of scenery. Later, I realized that this world might not be suitable for me. Kyuan, in the past, I wanted to grasp many things. The love of my adoptive parents, the love of my siblings, the love of my biological parents, the love of my fans. I was too stupid and couldn't seem to grasp them. I've been chasing after them for too long. I'm tired and I can't see any hope. I plan to let go. Living is really tiring. I'm too tired. I don't have any strength left. This is the first time I've abandoned something. I never thought that I would be able to make such a bold move one day. I can actually abandon this world. Stranger, farewell." In the suicide note, there was no explanation or blame. It was short and simple, only disappointment in this world. The person who helped the host was the female lead of this world. She was also a streamer. She didn't get along with the previous streamer who took the photos. She saw the host's incident by chance and felt that something was wrong. But by the time she found evidence, the host was already gone. The female lead of this world helped the original owner to redress her grievances and announced her identity to everyone. The streamer who filmed the video became the target of everyone's abuse and was even searched for information. Speaking of which, this world was indeed very laughable. This was the life of the original owner. No one was true to her when she was alive, but after she died, there were countless people who missed her. Every year on the anniversary of her death, there would be a lot of people coming to her Weibo and live broadcast room. But what was the use? After reading this heavy memory, Tangua frowned and sat there for a long time without saying anything. The host didn't have much interaction with the female lead of this world. At most, she was a small character that appeared when the female lead was fighting with other people. Speaking of which, the reason why the female lead became so popular so quickly was because she helped the original host clear her name. Tangua, on the other hand, did not care about this. The female lead of this world was a pretty good girl. It was natural for her to become popular after doing such things. The tragedy of the original owner came from two selfish blood-sucking families. They were the main culprits. Tangua stood up and looked at the oily apron hanging on her body. She immediately pulled it off. Geek. Chapter 4472. Dear host, are you going to quit? When the system saw Tangua take off the apron, it was excited. The plot of this matter was too infuriating. Yes, but I still need to do some things. Tangua remembered that she hadn't said goodbye to her friends in the group, so she sat down and sank her consciousness into the group. At this time, the system didn't say anything because there was one less person in the group. The moment Tangua entered the group, she looked at the list of members. Empress Dowager Chen, who was supposed to be lit up, had turned gray. She knew that this would happen sooner or later, but she still felt a little disappointed. Her mood, which was already low, became even lower. Actually, according to Empress Dowager Chen's age, she was already very old. It wasn't a bad thing for Empress Dowager Chen. People could be reincarnated. Empress Dowager Chen's death wasn't the end, but a new beginning. After a while, Tangua appeared in the group. As soon as she appeared, the others in the group popped up. Seeing, sister, you're here? Empress Dowager Chen left not long after you ended the last world. Chi Shao. Empress Dowager Chen left you a letter. Look at the red packet records. Other than the letter, there are some other things. Mo Yun Tian. This old lady is quite thoughtful. She left us a lot of things. Margaret. Why can't Empress Dowager Chen live forever? I quite like her. It would be great if her world could withstand all kinds of magical powers. Ziyun. This is the world's limit. The world's limit is that it can't allow people with great power to appear. Otherwise, this fragile world will collapse because of the appearance of great power. Margaret. I know. I'm just saying. I can't bear to part with her. Margaret. No, school beauty, you should be in a new world, right? Oh, I know. It's not a magical world. God, double whammy. 520 Harold. Even if it's a magical world, it might not be your magical world. Could be our magical world. Alan. Yes. Margaret. Get lost. Alan. Harold, Margaret told you to get out. Harold. She told you to get out. Alan. Get lost. Harold. Get out of here. When everyone was almost done quarreling, Tangua told them the plot of this world. Of course, it made everyone feel indignant and temporarily forgot the sadness of Empress Dowager Chen's departure. Tangua received the letter that Empress Dowager Chen left for her, as well as some trinkets. There wasn't much in the letter, but every sentence was filled with concern and reluctance to part with her. After reading it, she put all the items into the system space and withdrew her consciousness. On her side, only half an hour had passed. It wasn't busy in the store. On the way back, the couple only raised their heads and glanced at her without saying anything. Tangua found a seat and sat down, deep in thought. She went to school early. It wasn't that the couple cared if she studied or not, but they didn't want others to gossip about her. They didn't want the original owner to have good grades. Therefore, she was sent to school early. She was young, so her academic performance was naturally not as good as her classmates. Unlike many of her classmates who started learning at the age of 2 or 3, she had no foundation at all. Only by stumbling and stumbling could he barely catch up. Physics. Chapter 4473. When the couple saw this, they were very dissatisfied. They sent her to school to make her quit. It would be best if her grades were poor and she could only receive 9 years of compulsory education. They never thought that she could go to high school. Maybe the original owner was not stupid. Even with the burden of the family, she had to do all kinds of housework. The original owner's grades were easy for her to go to high school. Later, the couple thought of a way. The original owner could go to high school. It was okay to study more. He could also help their children with tutoring. So the original owner had another task. After school, after doing housework, she had to tutor her 2 younger brothers and sisters. The younger brother Tang Tao was 3 years younger than her. The younger sister Tang Lulu was 5 years younger than her. The original owner graduated from high school at the age of 16. That was last year. She was 17 years old this year. The younger brother Tang Tao was already a junior high school student. Tang Lulu still had 1 year to go to junior high school. Even if the original owner was busy in the shop, she had no free time at home. When her two younger brothers and sisters came back, she had to help them with their homework. Tang Tao and Tang Lulu were not good at studying. If she didn't help them, it was estimated that some subjects would be difficult to pass. The original owner didn't go to college after graduating from high school. It wasn't that she couldn't get into college. Of course, the score that was given at the time was indeed not enough. In fact, there was a reason why the score was not enough. It was her adoptive parents who had been crying in front of her. They deceived her that it was too difficult to raise 3 children at home and that it would cost a lot of money to go to college. They also told her that there were college students everywhere and many college students couldn't find a job. Wonderful book. The original owner grew up under the control of the two people. She didn't see the different things in the world like her peers. Naturally, she didn't know that if you have good grades in college, you can get scholarships, subsidies, and even apply for loans. In short, as long as you can get into college, there is no such thing as not being able to go to college because of the tuition. The better the school, the cheaper the tuition. But the couple brainwashed the original owner. She didn't have a mobile phone. The time she went online was when she was in computer class at school. But the school's internet speed was not to be mentioned. The equipment was old and the internet speed was slow. The original owner didn't have good friends. When she was in computer class for the first time, she could only clumsily hold the mouse. She was at a loss. She was even afraid that she would break the equipment. Later on, she barely knew how to operate it. She didn't know what a web search was and was afraid to ask others. Due to the influence of her adoptive parents, she had low self-esteem and a dull personality. She always felt that other people's gazes were very strange. Under her adoptive parents' complaints, they even gave her an idea to ask her to do fewer questions during the college entrance examination. Her grades were not considered outstanding in her class. She could get into a university, but it was impossible for her to get into a key university and not attract the attention of the teachers. That was why she promised her adoptive parents that she would do fewer questions. As a result, she was not able to get into the university, and her teachers did not pay much attention to her. Tangwa guessed that her teacher had probably called her adoptive parents, but the two of them didn't want her to go to college, so they had given some excuses. She was clearly a young girl, but under the control of the couple she lived a life isolated from the rest of the world. She had no idea how the world had developed. Occasionally, there would be customers eating noodles in the shop and playing with their phones while eating. She would also take a look out of curiosity, but she could only take a look. She couldn't look too much for fear of being scolded. Chapter 4474. No one told her that the life she was living now was not normal. Her parents' attitude towards her was not normal either. It wasn't that she didn't resist, but that she was used to such a life. This was called being used to it. She knew that her parents preferred younger siblings, but they always felt that she was not good enough. Moreover, her parents brainwashed her, saying that she was the elder sister and must be good to her younger siblings. "Why are you sitting here in a daze? Can't you see that the guests are here? Go and greet them." Although it was not the peak period, there were still 1 or 2 guests coming in occasionally. Tangguo was awakened by Li Xiaohong's loud voice. She looked up and saw the guests coming in. She did not intend to fall out with Li Xiaohong for the time being. She followed the character of the original owner and asked the guests what they wanted to eat. The people who came to eat noodles did not care much about the attitude of the waiters. They came in a hurry and left in a hurry. She casually said what she wanted to eat and Tangguo passed the message. Tang Xuan quickly made a small bowl of noodles and asked her to bring it out. Since there were guests, she could not sit and could only stand aside. Li Xiaohong was still at the cashier's position. She buried her head and stared at her phone watching a TV series. Tangguo glanced at it. It was a palace drama and the sound was a little loud. Inside, Tang Xuan was also sitting on a small bench and playing games. And she did not have a phone. She did not have any calls to make and no one was looking for her. The excuse of the couple was that she did not have anyone to contact and did not need a phone. But Tang Tao and Tang Lulu both had phones. The original owner had been brainwashed by them and would not think about why she did not have one. Until Tang Lulu gave her her phone, the couple did this to make her more obedient. But they did not know that this phone changed the original owner's outlook on life and she learned to fight for a different life for herself. But in the end she was still crushed by the 2 cold families. After the guests left, Tangguo put away the bowls and chopsticks and walked to Li Xiaohong. She did not speak, but Li Xiaohong felt that something was wrong. She subconsciously looked up and patted her chest. You little girl, are you trying to scare me? What are you doing? Mom, I am 17. I will be 18 next year. Li Xiaohong was stunned. Why do you want to get married? Now you can only get married when you're 20 years old. When you're old enough to talk about these things, you're really a girl who can't be kept. Li Xiaohong did not want to marry Tang Guo off so soon. If she were to get married, there would be no free labor in the store. It would cost at least 3,000 yuan to hire an employee. Not only did it cost money, but it was also not as good as Tang Guo. She had heard from the owner of the clothing store next door that he had hired an employee who was like a little princess. She couldn't be scolded, couldn't be talked to, and was extremely lazy. And the result? He only said a few harsh words, and the next day no one came. There was no notice at all. It was very difficult to manage. Li Xiaohong thought that Tang Guo wanted to get married, so she tried to persuade her. Tang Guo waited until her mouth was dry before she said, I don't want to date. If it's not a date, then what is it? Why are you suddenly saying these strange things? Do you have nothing better to do? I heard that there are scholarships in college now. You can also apply for loans. Tang Guo said. She did not intend to go to college again. She just said this to trick Li Xiaohong. Sure enough, Li Xiaohong's expression changed slightly. She continued, I want to continue studying. I heard that in college you will at least be an office worker. Geek. Chapter 4475. Why did you suddenly think of this? Let me tell you, college students are different from college students. Many of them can't find a job. It's not what you think. Li Xiaohong's voice became sharp. Who told you this? This isn't harming people. How much time will you waste if you go to college? You'll repeat 1 year in high school and 4 years in college. 5 years will pass. At that time, you won't find a job and you'll have spent a lot of money. I can get a loan myself. I know my family is in trouble and I don't want to spend our money. Li Xiaohong disagreed. Tang Guo said, why don't I go out and find a job with a higher salary? I'll make money first and then study. Tang Guo's voice was very stubborn. Li Xiaohong didn't know what to say. Mom, do my brother and sister only study until high school? Tang Guo's tone suddenly changed. She didn't come to discuss with Li Xiaohong. Li Xiaohong said subconsciously, of course not. Xiao Tao and Lulu are going to college. Speaking of this, she thought of something and saw Tang Guo's unfathomable eyes. She couldn't help but feel a little scared and guilty. Someone must have whispered in this girl's ear. Otherwise she wouldn't have thought of this. Li Xiaohong wanted to persuade her, but Tang Guo said again, it's not a way to go on like this. I have to save some money for myself. Li Xiaohong wanted to say that when she needed money she would give it. Of course it wouldn't be too much. When she got married she would ask for more betrothal gifts so that she wouldn't feel like she was losing out. However, Tang Guo's words interrupted her. In the past I didn't understand why I was different from other children. I was also different from Xiao Tao and Lulu. Now I finally understand. After all, I'm not my parents' biological child. How can I be treated fairly? When Tang Guo said this, Li Xiaohong almost fell off the stool. Tang Guo didn't give her a chance. She took off her apron and threw it at Li Xiaohong. You're not my child. Of course it won't hurt. Tang Guo turned around and left the store. It was impossible for her to stay here as a coolie for a day. It would be better to find his biological parents and let them fight among themselves. Li Xiaohong was still thinking about how Tang Guo knew that she was adopted, but Tang Guo had already run away. Tang Xiwan. Li Xiaohong yelled into the room. Something's wrong, stop playing games. Tang Xiwan raised his head in confusion. Seeing Li Xiaohong so flustered, he quickly ran out. What's wrong? I know that girl knows. I don't know if someone said something to her when she went back to her hometown, but she ran away. She said that she was going to look for her biological parents, that ungrateful wretch. Tang Guo went home first and found the pocket money she had saved since she was a child. Learning how to save pocket money might be part of a person's nature or intuition. She didn't tell anyone. She hid it very well, and the pocket money was not given by Li Xiaohong and her husband. Instead, it was the money she earned from picking up trash and selling it. The original owner didn't owe Li Xiaohong and her husband anything. After more than 10 years she had already paid them back. Tang Guo took the money and her identity card and went to look for her biological parents. She wanted to find them and take a bite out of Li Xiaohong and her husband. She went to her hometown in the countryside intending to make a big deal out of this. Now that she had grown up, her biological parents would accept her. Of course, she didn't need them to accept her. She just wanted to use them to do something else. The county town wasn't far from her hometown and she could get back in 2 hours. When Tangguo returned to the village, she asked everyone about her background. The villagers wouldn't help Li Xiaohong and her husband hide anything. It was also because the original owner didn't live in the village and stayed in the city with Li Xiaohong and her husband. Otherwise, they would have found out that she wasn't their biological child. I heard that you can get a loan to go to university. If you have good grades, you can even get a scholarship. You don't have to spend your family's money. Tangguo whispered to an aunt in the village. Later on, I met my former teacher and asked her about it. She wouldn't lie. At that time, many of my classmates relied on scholarships to go to university. Geek. Chapter 4476. They lied to me, saying that it would cost a lot of money to go to college and that they couldn't afford it. I also asked around. If it was a good college, the tuition would only be a few thousand yuan. Xiao Tao and Lulu's mobile phones cost a few thousand yuan each. Now I understand that I'm not their biological daughter. I always thought that they didn't like me because I didn't do well enough. I did all the chores at home, cooking, washing clothes and mopping the floor. I also had to help Xiao Tao and Lulu with their homework and help in the shop. But they still didn't like me. Now I understand. The village aunt said, "Poor child, I used to think that something was wrong. Every year when you came back, Xiao Tao and Lulu would be dressed so well, but you were always wearing old clothes. You were also quiet and didn't talk to us much. Li Xiaohong said that you had a bad temper and we all took it seriously." So, sixth aunt, do you know who my biological parents are? I want to find them. I don't want them to burden me with my studies. I just want to meet them and know if my biological parents treat me differently. Tangguo had told her what happened to her since she was a child. Moreover, most of the villagers knew a little about those things. By then, these things would definitely spread like wildfire. In her memory, the original owner's parents made a big deal out of this matter. The reason why they made a big deal out of it was because they wanted benefits. Even if they couldn't get the money, it would be good to take back the grown-up original owner. Now she didn't need them to raise her. She couldn't spend money and could still get benefits. How wonderful it was. The villagers gradually increased. After hearing about Tangguo's story, they also said what they saw. They all felt that Li Xiaohong and her husband were bad. In fact, they were also jealous of Li Xiaohong and her husband's small noodle shop. In addition, the two of them came back every year with a superior attitude, which was annoying. How could they let go of a chance to attack the two of them? In this way, with the help of the villagers, Tangguo found her biological parents. Her adoptive parents and biological parents were from the neighboring village. Moreover, her adoptive father and biological father both had the surname Tang. This was one of the reasons why the adoption went smoothly. Tang Jiandong and Zhou Yueqing came over. Their eyes were red. If one didn't know what they were thinking, their current appearance would truly cause one to feel touched. Zhou Yueqing hugged Tangguo and cried bitterly. My daughter, you've suffered a lot. I shouldn't have adopted you. If I had known that those two bastards would treat you like this, I would have kept you even if I had to sell everything I have." Tang Jiandong didn't say anything, but he acted like a regretful father. However, in his heart he was thinking that this girl was already 17 this year. In another 2 years he would be able to find a husband for her. Tang Xiuan and his wife were also very foolish. He was already so old. If he didn't coax him a little, wouldn't it be letting him off easy if he ran back? This girl was quite good-looking. With her appearance, she could be said to be from a wealthy family. The betrothal gift would be at least 200,000 yuan. However, he could not be as foolish as Tang Xiuan and his wife, who were so ruthless. This girl had to be coaxed. If he treated her well and said good things to her, she wouldn't die. If he tricked her, not only would he get the betrothal gift, but this girl would also be filial to him in the future and help him take care of his youngest son. In this way, his son wouldn't have to worry about buying a house and finding a wife in the future. We can't just let this matter go. When we took third brother out, we didn't take a single cent. In the end, how was third brother treated? Tang Jiandong said. At that time, Zhou Yueqing wanted to take the money, but she was persuaded by Tang Jiandong. He was thinking far ahead. They were from the neighboring village. If this girl found out about this in the future and he took the money, it would be hard to say anything. He didn't have much money to begin with. He took her out not because he couldn't afford to raise her but because of the fine. Tang Jiandong was thinking that if the girl found out about the truth in the future and didn't take the money, there was still room to salvage the situation. She didn't need to raise third brother. If he coaxed her, she might be able to recognize third brother. Then there would be one more person to take care of his youngest son. During festivals there would be more filial piety. Zhou Yueqing hugged Tang Gua and cried bitterly. In her heart she was actually admiring Tang Jiandong's foresight. Tang Gua knew that the couple had their own thoughts. She didn't mind at all. She still wanted to use them to beat up Li Xiaohong and her husband. Speaking of which, it was really sad. Tang Jiandong was much smarter than Li Xiaohong and her husband. Her two sisters had really been brainwashed by him to become the devil who supported their younger brother. They even thought that their father was good. Chapter 4477. Tang Jiandong and his wife stayed by Tang Gua's side and cried for a while. Then they asked her in front of everyone how she had been all these years. They were obviously trying to make a big deal out of it and publicize what Tang Xiwan and his wife had done. How could Tang Gua not cooperate? She pretended that she had just found her biological parents and was overjoyed. She answered whatever they asked. Over the years there had been many college students in the village. When Tang Gua said that the couple persuaded her that it was useless for her to go to college and that her family could not afford it, they were very angry. What was even more infuriating was that the couple had instigated Tang Gua to do fewer questions during the exam so that she could fail and no one would ask about it. Silly girl, it's not that college students are useless. It's just that they don't want you to continue studying. Zhou Yueqing cried again. Her voice was as loud as Li Xiaohong's. It was very penetrating and could be heard from far away. If your two sisters' grades were as good as yours, we would want them to go to college, even if we have to sell everything we have. Tang Jiandong's face darkened. You can work in an office if you go to college. Even if we don't have the money to go to college, we can get a loan first. Tang Jiandong was just saying. However, if Tang Gua's grades were really good and she grew up in his family, he really did not mind her going to college. As long as she did not spend the family's money, it was also a good thing to earn scholarships and loans. In this way, not only would he be proud, but he would also have a powerful sister to take care of Xiaobao in the future. They would not have to worry so much about Xiaobao's future. Those two bastards are holding you back. Zhou Yueqing continued to cry. My daughter, if you were at home you would not cry like this. At that time the couple did not have any children. I thought they would treat you well. I heard that they were good to you 2 years ago. I thought that I should not disturb them, so I did not pay attention to it. Who knew that they were just putting on an act? They actually treated you as a servant when they had their own children. Tang Jiandong's face turned ugly. I heard that you graduated from high school last year? Have you been working in their shop? Tang Gua nodded. Yes. Did they pay you? Tang Jiandong asked again. Tang Gua's answer was no. The auntie from before said noisily, look at what this girl is wearing. It's been a few years. She can't even afford to buy new clothes. How can they pay her? Both of you aren't by her side and you didn't teach her anything. She's just being bullied by others. The villagers were all talking at once, criticizing Tang Xiwan and Li Xiaohong. Under such circumstances, Tang Gua was taken home by Tang Jiandong and Zhou Yueqing. Her two elder sisters were already married. Her elder sister Tang Fong was 3 years older than her. She was 20 this year and had been married for 2 years. He even had a child now. In the countryside, it was not strange to get married at the age of 18. However, the marriage certificate could only be obtained when one reached the age of 18. Her second sister, Tang Fei, was 2 years older than her. She was now 19 and married. According to her memory, she was pregnant a few months ago. There was also a younger brother here, the son that Tang Jiandong and Zhou Yueqing had been looking forward to, Tang Xiaobao. He was 2 years younger than her, 15 this year. From his name, one could tell Tang Xiaobao's status in the family. Her elder sister and second sister both had junior high school diplomas. Their grades were not good. With their own abilities they could not enter high school. Geek. Chapter 4478. Tang Jiandong and his wife had placed all their hopes on Tang Xiaobao, hoping that their family could produce a college student. Therefore she guessed that if there was a girl in the family who could get into college, the couple would not stop her. However, it was impossible for them to fork out more money. However, Tang Jiandong was much smarter than Tang Xiuan and his wife. He would definitely pretend to think of all kinds of ways for the girl. Not only would he let the girl settle the loan herself, but he would also make her feel grateful. This kind of small matter was too easy for Tang Jiandong. As mentioned earlier, Tang Gua had no intention of entering the school again. This family was like leeches. Once they bit into you, they would not let go and would drill into your flesh. If she really went to university with their help, she would have fallen into their trap. If she did not support them, she would be in the wrong if things got out of hand. After all, if word got out that she left her cruel adoptive parents and went back to school with the help of her biological parents, the public would not be on her side. She did not mind this, but she did not want to bear this kind of unwarranted infamy. Zhou Yueqing cooked a lot of dishes under Tang Jiandong's instructions. This was probably the most comfortable meal she had ever had in her memory. She had also encountered a table full of delicious food before, but they did not even bother to eat more. I've already called your two sisters. Xiaobao is living on campus and will come back on the weekend. It will only take 2 days. After the meal, Tang Jiandong said, "Your two sisters will come over in the afternoon. We will discuss it and bring you back. We can't let you suffer there." Zhou Yueqing said, "Those two are too cruel. We shouldn't have agreed to that." "Yeah, we shouldn't have agreed." Tang Jiandong's face was full of regret. "If it wasn't for the family's financial difficulties and the fine, I wouldn't have taken Xiaoguo away. It was also because those two said that they could take good care of Xiaoguo that I was tempted. It's all your fault. You still had Xiaobao. You should have raised both of them together." Zhou Yueqing said angrily, "If we raised them ourselves, our daughter wouldn't have suffered so much." Tang Jiandong sighed. "Perhaps this is fate. This child is quite smart. Since we have found her, we must bring her back. I'll go look for the village head and ask everyone in the village to help. They should have. That couple was clearly using our daughter as a coolie. If we hadn't found our daughter, who knows how many more years she would have been tortured." Tang Gua lowered her head and ate silently, pretending to be sad and touched. In the memory, the two husband and wife also sang the same tune, which made the original owner very moved. At that time, she thought that these were her real biological parents. Only her biological parents would plan for her. Tang Jiandong even asked if she wanted to go back to school. The original owner was a sensible person. If she could come back and live a different life with her biological parents, she really didn't mind working a little harder. As long as she was recognized by her parents, she could get the affection she wanted. Going back to school would cost money. Although she wanted to go, she was sensible and didn't want to implicate her biological parents, so she refused. He planned to go out and work. The family Tang couple gave her 1,000 yuan as a token of appreciation, which made her very touched. Because the Tang couple didn't even give her 100 yuan, let alone 1,000 yuan. With this comparison, her heart was naturally won over by Tang Jiandong and Zhou Yueqing. Geek. Chapter 4479. When she left the village, all she wanted was to earn money and be filial to her parents. In fact, the two of them were just nice to her. Other than the 1,000 yuan, they didn't do much to the original owner. Because of their good words, most of the money earned by the original owner went into their pockets. During the years she was a streamer, the original owner could earn at least 20,000 yuan a month. She kept her own living expenses and rent. Occasionally she needed to buy some equipment. She could send at least 10 to 15,000 yuan a month. This silly girl thought that her biological parents treated her wholeheartedly, so she didn't think about saving money. Her last heart was destroyed by this family and she lost the courage to live. After dinner, Tang Jiandong went to find the village head. Tang Gua didn't go with him. Zhou Yueqing stayed at home to chat with her, asking her about her life there. She cried and it was sad to talk about it. But Zhou Yueqing asked this under Tang Jiandong's instructions. He wanted to ask for an explanation when the time came. Even though it sounded a little pitiful, Zhou Yueqing thought about how much this girl could bring to them. How much affection could they have for a daughter they didn't raise? In the afternoon, Tang Gua's two sisters came back. The two sisters were a little tanned, but judging from their faces, their looks weren't bad. The eldest sister, Tang Feng, had a 2-year-old child. The second sister, Tang Fei, had the same thought as Tang Gua and came with a big belly. The two of them looked at Tangwa and their eyes turned red. Tears kept falling. When you were taken away I was 5 years old. I can remember but I didn't know why. Now that I think about it I even cried. The eldest sister Tang Fong said, I didn't expect you to suffer so much. It's good that you're back. I don't remember but I heard Mom and Dad mention it. Tang Fei said, it's good that you're back. I didn't expect that family to be so evil. As they chatted the topic turned to Tang Xiaobao. Tang Fong said, if Xiaobao knew he would be very happy. Tang Fei said, yeah, Xiaobao is such a sweet child. His own brother is definitely different from other people's brothers. Xiaobao knows how to dote on others and his grades are better than ours. He will definitely be a college student in the future. Little sister, you have to take care of Xiaobao in the future. In the future, when this child becomes a university student and has a promising future, he will be filial to you. Tang Fong said, that Tang Tao can't compare to his own brother. Fortunately you're back. When you see Xiaobao in 2 days you'll definitely like him. The two of them pulled Tangwa and said a lot of things about Tang Xiaobao being a good brother, which was comparable to brainwashing. Tangwa didn't mind and let them talk. These two sisters had been brainwashed by Tang Jiandong since they were young. His methods were much better than Tang Xiwan and his wife. Tang Jiandong did not mistreat his two daughters on the surface. He only used some tricks to make his two daughters willingly become his younger brother's helpers. Later on, after they got married, they kept all the good things in their hands for Tang Xiaobao. They were not so good to their own children. Once they were bullied at their husband's house, they would come back. Tang Jiandong would ask Zhou Yueqing to give them delicious food and help them scold their husband. There was nothing else. But it was this little bit that made the two sisters crazy. They thought that their family was the best. Only when they betrayed Tang Xiaobao would they have a good life. Because of this, their relationship with their husband's family was not good. Even their children were not close to them. Peak. Chapter 4480. After Tangwa's accident, the two thought that she was insensible and made a mountain out of a molehill, implicating her family, so they blamed her. Therefore Tangwa never thought of helping these two brothers to wake up. In her memory, the original owner also sent them a lot of money, but they only thought that Tang Xiaobao would be successful, so they didn't remember their kindness. Tangwa guessed that most of the money that fell into their hands was used to subsidize Tang Xiaobao. The two sisters had families, so they left after staying for an afternoon. Tang Jiandong's house was only a few bungalows. It didn't look good in the village and looked like a poor family. This gave people the feeling that this family was very poor and didn't have a good life. The original owner also thought so. When the couple adopted her, maybe it was because they wanted her to have a good life, but they miscalculated. In fact, Tang Jiandong didn't build beautiful houses like the other villagers because he was saving money. In his mind, Tang Xiaobao would be a university student in the future and would live in the city, so he would have to buy a house. He saved all his money and pretended to be poor, so that he could get more money from his two daughters to buy a house. In the future, the two of them would live a happy life with their son. The houses in the village wouldn't need to be so beautiful and useless. Tangwa didn't deliberately change her path home and let Tang Jiandong help her plan. After 2 days she saw Tang Xiaobao coming home. She didn't know what Tang Jiandong said, but he was very sweet and knew how to coax people. After hearing about her, he clenched his fists and said that he would help her get justice. In her memory, Tang Xiaobao was also very good at coaxing people. No matter if the original owner made money or not, she would always think of this younger brother and send him all kinds of things. Sending money was a common thing. In fact, this family wasn't much different from Tang Xiwan and his wife. The biggest difference was that they squeezed the original owner in different ways. A few days later, Tang Jiandong took the villagers and Tangwa to Tang Xiwan and his wife to seek justice. They went straight to the previous store and made a big deal out of it. Soon all the neighbors knew about it. That day there were no customers in the store. With so many people around, who would dare to come and eat? Tang Jiandong came prepared. Tang Xiwan and his wife couldn't compete with him. They could only watch Tang Jiandong take Tangwa back to their home. Tang Jiandong was also the one who did the household registration. Tangwa didn't really care about the household registration. In the future, if she wanted to leave this place, she could use her ID card to apply for a household registration, which would be enough for her to do whatever she wanted. Of course, it was still too early to think about this now. Now she was going to take the next step, which was to leave the family Tang group and go out to work. Tang Xiuan and his wife couldn't raise their heads in the village after Tang Jiandong made such a scene last time. Tang Tao and Tang Lulu were both relatively young. They didn't want to come to Tang Guo's trouble at all. They were all cowards. However, when they met later, he didn't look at her kindly and scolded her. "Do you still want to go to school? I've asked around. Your grades are not bad. At least you can go to university." Tang Jiandong was asking Tang Guo. In fact, he thought that a year had passed and Tang Guo might have forgotten these questions. He asked this because he was sure that Tang Guo wouldn't enter the school again. He had calculated every step clearly. Tang Guo shook her head. "No, I want to go to work. It's not good to always be at home and eat and drink from my parents. We're all family. Don't say such things. You're my daughter. What's wrong with taking care of you?" Tang Jiandong's face darkened. Who dares to gossip? The peak. Chapter 4481. Look, this is Tang Jiandong's brainwashing. He is so good at talking. If you don't pay attention, you will be tricked by him and think that he really loves his daughter. Although I don't mind raising you for a lifetime, I have to think about your future. You can't just eat and drink at home. Tang Jiandong changed the topic. You have to find a job and earn some money. Your mother and I don't have much ability and can't give you much. We can only give you food to eat. Every girl has a family. If you have some money in your hands, you will be able to straighten your back when you get married in the future. Do whatever you want to do. Your mother and I will support you. But don't forget to call home often to tell us that you are safe. Don't worry about us. Tang Jiandong said. He didn't mention the filial piety of earning money. He was worried that Tang Guo would be taken advantage of. He was afraid that she would get lost. In the original owner's environment, when she made money in the future, how could she not send the money back to her parents? A month later, Tang Guo left the village with the 1,000 yuan that Tang Jiandong gave her. In fact, she didn't have more than 2,000 yuan. In her memory, the original owner first found a job in the city that provided food and accommodation. She worked in a factory. Later, she saved some money and went out to do various other jobs. She planned to learn a craft, but unfortunately, she repeatedly hit a wall. Her personality was not likable, so it was difficult for her to learn skills. Tang Guo got on the bus. She was thinking about how she should live with less than 2,000 yuan on her. Although there were a lot of good things in the space with her background, it would be troublesome to take them out. In this world, there was still no special power. In order to stabilize the space, she couldn't cultivate. Not being able to cultivate meant that if she took out some special things to sell, she would be suspected and it would be difficult for her to get away. He was not afraid of starving. There was a lot of food in the space. Even if she didn't prepare, she could ask her friends in the group to send her some. So, first she needed a place to live. Tang Guo originally wanted to go to a big city. Later, she found that she didn't have enough money. So she got on the bus and went to a small town where the rent was a few hundred yuan. She planned to start a business here. I suddenly found that I am so poor. Because of her identity and background, she could not reveal some of her abilities. Actually, the main reason was that she wanted to follow the original path of certain things. If she didn't walk around once, she wouldn't be able to meet those people. How could she make her move then? The reason why she came to the small county town was that she had arrived early. She planned to earn some money first before moving to the city where the incident had happened. She wanted to start playing and streaming now, but she couldn't even afford a phone. The key to playing games was to have a decent phone. It had to be at least 4,000 to 5,000 RMB. After wandering around the small town twice, Tang Guo decided to go to a clothing store. She had taken a fancy to this clothing store because the designs in the store were not bad, but there were very few customers. After walking around for 2 rounds, he realized that the boss of this shop didn't know how to match the ingredients, but the price was reasonable. After grinding for 2 hours, she finally got the job as a salesgirl in a clothing store. She rematched all the clothes and changed the position of the hanging clothes. Originally, the clothes were only worth 100 yuan, but after she matched them and hung them up, they were instantly upgraded. He felt that it was not impossible to buy them for 200 yuan. Of course, the boss didn't raise the price. Many people came in to take a look. After working here for 3 months, Tang Guo could finally afford a phone. She called Tang Jiandong and his wife every month and said that she had found a job washing dishes. The salary was very low and she couldn't show filial piety to them for the time being. Peak. Chapter 4482. The couple did not mind since it was just the beginning. After getting the phone, Tangwa quit her job at the clothing store. Her boss tried to persuade her a few times and even offered to give her a raise, but she rejected it all. Tangwa planned to be a playmate and a substitute player. She only needed a phone to be a playmate, but she needed other equipment for live streaming. The game was called Honor of Kings and it was a popular game in recent years. Tangwa spent money to buy 2 accounts. Only the accounts she bought had inscriptions. After buying the accounts, she started playing the game according to her memory. It was easy for her to get the hang of it. She practiced for 2 days before using a new account to gain points. It was near the end of the season, so those who were below Honor of Kings were noobs. It was easy for them to gain points if they played solo. He won all the way to the top. With the achievement of posting advertisements, she took screenshots of all her victories and asked the system to help her post advertisements. The system said, "Host, I think it's easier to trade stocks. It's a waste of my talent to post advertisements. Give me some capital and you'll have money next month." Tangwa said, "I used my capital to buy a phone. Don't you know how much money I have? Wait until I earn more, then I'll let you trade stocks for fun." The system said, "Host, that's not fun." Although the system was grumbling, it still posted advertisements for Tangwa seriously. With the help of the system, the advertisements were easily seen by others. After a while, someone came to add Tangwa. "A macho man, do you want to take the order? Fruit jam, yes. A macho man, Diamond 2 to Honor of Kings." With the first, there was a second. People kept adding Tangwa to help with the orders. Tangwa calculated the time to accept the orders. Otherwise, she would not be able to finish them. Although Tangwa's skills were good, it was impossible for her to win continuously without losing. Sometimes she would be matched with strange teammates. It was impossible for her to win even if she wanted to. The system was watching from the side and was very anxious. It felt that as long as one teammate cooperated, the host could still win even if the other teammates were all trash. The system said, "Host, I'll buy an account and play with you. You've met 3 trash players. It's too inefficient if this goes on." Tangwa didn't refuse. Okay. The system was overjoyed. In fact, it had another purpose, which was to play games with its host. "Tangwa, you don't have to buy a number. I'll give you the receipt number. Let's call together." She had never thought that little Tungzi would know how to play games. System. Okay. Actually, trading stocks might not be as fun as gaming. After that, with the cooperation of Tangwa and the system, they were unstoppable and almost never lost. On the day before the start of the new season, the 2 of them finished all their assignments. The bosses were very satisfied and Tangwa took the opportunity to promote it. If the bosses had time, they could play with them. Of course, the price of playing with them was more expensive, but it was their choice. At the same time, he also promoted the new season's arrangement. Some bosses simply let Tangwa manage their accounts. Just like that, Tangwa had a group of bosses. However, no one had asked her to play with them yet, so she wasn't in a hurry. At this time, Tangwa had an extra sum of money in her hands. She could buy streaming equipment. After buying the streaming equipment, Tangwa started to play while streaming. Gradually, she gained popularity. She signed a contract with a guild and a streaming platform, and obtained a certain amount of resources. The guild had actually discussed it and asked if she wanted to show her face, but Tangwa rejected. Her streaming was mainly divided into 3 parts. The first part was a high-end game show. The second part was killing with the receipt number. The third part was playing with the bosses. Among the 3, playing with the bosses was the most exhausting, but it was also the most profitable. Geek. Chapter 4483. A year and a half passed unknowingly. Tangwa had more and more money in her hands. She didn't plan to let the system invest in stocks. She didn't plan to be rich in this life. However, the fact that she was a streamer was going to be exposed sooner or later. She already planned to make herself carry a huge debt. Today, when Tangwa just logged into the game interface, she received a rocket. A rocket for 1,000 yuan. It was a pleasant surprise for any streamer. She glanced at the ID of the person who gave her the gift. He must have just joined her stream. However, she still thanked him. "Thank you, boss. Boss is so generous." "Handsome, do you want to play with me?" Tangwa looked at the bullet screen and replied, "Yes." "Boss, do you want to get in the car?" "Handsome, yes, but I have a request. Don't worry. As long as I'm happy, the price isn't a problem. I remember that when you play with me it's 100 yuan for 2 hours. I can give you a rocket for 2 hours, but I have a request. Tanghua, boss, what do you want to say first? Handsome, I prefer to play as an attacker. But every time I play as an attacker the support doesn't follow me. Tanghua understood. Boss, you want me to play as an attacker? Handsome, yes, you support me. It doesn't matter if I win or lose. Just let me have fun. After saying that, the person called Handsome sent another rocket to Tanghua. The people in the stream were already cheering. Host, pick up. The big boss is here. Hogwa, pick up. For the sake of the rocket, I won't blame you for playing as an attacker. I want to see the boss take you flying. Perhaps it was the words of the fans in the stream that made Handsome very happy, so he sent another rocket to Tanghua. 3 rockets would be 3,000 yuan. Tanghua succumbed to the temptation of money. Wasn't it just helping the boss? She believed that other streamers would make the same choice as her. Tanghua, boss, add me. I'll get in the car immediately. Handsome, you support me for the whole morning. I'll send you 10 rockets. Just now I already sent you 3. Afternoon I'll send you the remaining 7. But you can't back out halfway. Otherwise the remaining 7 will be gone. You have to play with me for the whole morning. Even in the past year, Tanghua was not considered a big streamer. Therefore the fans were very happy to receive 10 rockets in a day, and they all urged Tanghua to do it. Tanghua had the same thought. This boss seemed to like playing games a lot. Soon Handsome added her. She pulled him into the room and started matching. Because this was a live stream and not a fight, it was a game. Therefore the system did not accompany Tanghua. He was the one leading the boss. No, the fans in the live stream were all saying that the rich boss wanted to take her flying. The boss took her flying? Tanghua was very doubtful about the matter of being carried away by someone. The boss was now in the diamond rank, so Tanghua didn't think too much about it. After entering, she asked the boss what the handsome man wanted to play and what support he needed. Handsome Master turned on the voice chat. Judging from his voice, he seemed to be relatively young, in his early 20s. His voice was a little soft, making the fans in the live broadcast room scream. Handsome said, I play Little Luban. I have the Starry Sky skin. The skin feels pretty good to the touch. I like it very much. Tanghua, boss, you can do whatever you want. What support do you need? Handsome, Kaiwenji, remember to always follow me. No matter what the situation is, you have to remember to play with me. You're not allowed to help out. We're in a duo, understand? Tanghua, okay boss. You have the final say. At first Tanghua thought that this boss played Little Luban and had no one to protect him. Therefore she was angry and came to play with him. Later she realized that was not the case. Peak. Chapter 4484. Tanghua chose to support Kaiwenji according to the request of the rich boss, Handsome. Previously, in order to carry the boss, she asked Little Tongzi to help her train a lot of accounts for various ranks. With the help of the system she could play many accounts at the same time. After more than a year she had a lot of accounts that she could use. Although this account had all the heroes, there were very few skins. Basically only the heroes that she used had skins. She didn't buy skins for those that had experience cards. Naturally she couldn't use a support hero like Kaiwenji to carry the boss. She couldn't carry him at all. There was no skin. In this game the support was her Kaiwenji. The archer was the rich boss, Handsome's Little Luban. The middle was Angela, the jungler was Han Exin. The side was Qing Yaojin. The opposite jungler was Sun Wukong. The middle was Wang Zhaojun. The archer was Ho Yi, the support was Ho Yi, and the side was Tuchio. The audience in the live broadcast room looked at the lineups on both sides and started discussing. There are no double mages in this rank. There are no double archers either. Both sides seem to be normal. Let's wait for the rich boss to carry the streamer. Because the rich boss, Handsome, had sent 3 rockets in a row and it was early in the morning, it attracted a lot of people to watch. The people who came to watch saw the audience's discussion and realized that the boss was sending money and asked the streamer to support him. Many people stopped to see the result. After the lineups were chosen, all the heroes entered the game map. Tanghua followed Handsome's previous instructions and followed him at the beginning of the game. Handsome, that's it. Follow me. Tanghua, boss, don't worry. I'll definitely follow you. Even if I want to follow Han Exayan, my legs are too short to keep up. Although she was following the boss, Tangwa still paid attention to the opposite position. Perhaps because this rank was relatively low, no one came to counter Han Xian's blue. She was a little relieved and accompanied Handsome to kill minions on the development road. Handsome, sure enough, it's more interesting to find someone who knows how to play. The support I met several times before either didn't follow me or went out to buy shoes. They stole my experience, my money, and even called me a noob. The audience in the live broadcast room. Haha, the boss is so resentful. Sounds like the boss knows how to play. Let's wait and see. I don't think it's going to work. I just checked the boss account's data. There are a lot of skins in the crystals. For Tangwa, the rhythm of the diamond game was very slow. Both sides seemed to be developing well and did not cause any trouble for the time being. So far, nothing had happened on her path. This was because Kai Wenji had the second skill, bouncing. Ho Yi and Lu Shan on the opposite side were bounced off by her every single time, and they even had the upper hand. Viewers in the live stream, I feel the host's boredom. How is playing with the boss boring? Young people don't know how to talk. Tangwa saw that Han Xian had gone to the opposite jungle, but he did not seem to have gained anything. Soon he returned, intending to go to the middle lane to kill another wave. Unfortunately, Wang Xiaojun used crouch on him and froze him for a round. Fortunately, Wang Xiaojun hadn't used her ultimate move yet, so he managed to escape with a sliver of HP. She looked at Wang Xiaojun's direction. It seemed that she was coming to her side. She quickly reminded him, "Boss, Wang Xiaojun is coming down. Don't go so far." "Handsome master, just a few more hits and Ho Yi will be beaten to death by me." Indeed, whether it was Ho Yi or Lu Shan, they didn't have much HP left. She could only stand in the grass and crouch, watching Wang Xiaojun's movements. On the other side, Ho Yi and Lu Shan were already on their way back. Her boss was still using all his strength to attack. Chapter 4485. Han Xian was fighting for his mana again and had no intention of catching another wave of players. She thought that if Han Xian could catch another wave of players just now, Ho Yi and Lu Shan would die. "Boss, let's go. Wang Xiaojun is here." Tangwa saw Wang Xiaojun coming over and quickly reminded him. This time Handsome was very obedient. He controlled his short legs and planned to walk back. Unexpectedly, Monkey rushed out from the tower. Tangwa quickly rushed over and healed him. At the same time she used two skills. She was still a bit away from a big move. "Flash, boss, flash and run," she said quickly. Handsome quickly flashed and ran away. Handsome ran away, but because she blocked Monkey's attack, she was frozen by Wang Xiaojun. When she was about to thaw, Ho Yi used another big move and stunned her. Ho Yi rushed over with Lu Shan. Lu Shan hammered her again. In the end, she was hammered to death by Monkey. Livestream audience. Ha! Ha! I'm dying of laughter. I feel the streamer's helplessness. She was beaten by 4 big men. In the past, I've always seen the streamer escape from 5 big men. This is the first time I've seen her being beaten to the point where she can't fight back. I don't know why, but I really want to laugh. Tangwa was still rejoicing. If the support died, then so be it. At least the boss, the output position, was still alive. But she didn't expect that just as her interface turned gray, she would hear the sound of her boss being killed. "Tangwa, boss, why didn't you go home?" She saw that Handsome's position wasn't under the tower. In other words, he wasn't beaten by 4 people. "Handsome, you have to be loyal. I thought I could intimidate them by going over. I even sent a message to my teammates, but they didn't come." Tangwa looked at Han Xian, who had just come to the red zone. He was in the middle of the clearing line with On Courage and Tachibana Yujing. Even if Han Xian could rush over, he wouldn't be able to. She felt that her boss was a little naive. "Boss, next time you have a little health left and don't even have a vampiric knife. Don't stand there and attack. Run for your life." "Handsome, okay, I know. This time it was a mistake." Livestream audience. I'm dying of laughter. I'm afraid this boss is a simpleton. What? Boss clearly doesn't want to see the streamer die alone. He's loyal. Yes, the boss is loyal. Tangwa and Handsome both resurrected, but their towers had already fallen. This was because the other side had Lu Shan. Even if they did not have any interference skills, they could still push down the tower very quickly. "Handsome master, it's okay. We only destroyed a tower. Let's develop ourselves. Tanguy felt that the previous scene really couldn't be blamed on the boss for being too weak. His teammates were also quite weak. As for Angela in the middle lane, she didn't come to support them even once. After clearing out the troops, she was either hiding in the bushes in the middle lane or under the tower. She didn't support them at all. Han Xian, on the other hand, was either eating from Qing Yaojin's side or going to the middle lane to eat the minions. It was as if he had forgotten that there was still a marksman in the middle lane. Tanguy. It's so difficult to be a streamer. Aha, Angela and Han Xian are definitely screwed. Just look at what they're doing. Handsome, you protect me. We have a chance to win. Chapter 4486. Tanguy, boss, don't worry. I promise to follow you. I won't go back on my word. As for whether they could win, she couldn't guarantee it. There were too many unknowns. She couldn't count on Han Xian, but could she count on her boss? She probably couldn't. Tanguy and Handsome just went out. Angela and Han Xian were eating minions together in the middle lane, but Angela seemed to be a little dissatisfied with Han Xian and kept retreating. Han Xian ate and then left. Angela stood under the tower and typed. Angela, get lost. Han Xian ignored her and continued to farm. After eating the minions in the Sagittarius development lane, he quickly ran to Qing Yaojin's lane. Tanguy saw that there was only one Wang Zhaojun on the opposite side. She quickly marked on the map that someone might be squatting on the top lane. But Han Xian still rushed over. In the end, he was controlled by Tachibana Kyoku's skill and was hammered to death by Monkey. Han Xian, does the support know how to play? Tanguy? Livestream viewers, Han Xian is a noob. Noob Han Xian. The streamer has already sent a signal. Even if she wants to follow him, can she keep up? He looks like a noob. Even if he can, it's impossible. Han Xian's awareness is too bad. He doesn't know how to catch people. He only knows how to farm. He actually scolded the streamer for not knowing how to play. To everyone's surprise, Angela also started typing. Angela. There are 2 pits in the Sagittarius development lane. Can you count on them? Livestream viewers. Fuck, is this something to be said by numbers? I admit that the rich boss may not be good and is a bit of a pit, but she's not much better, okay? She started the game in the middle lane and didn't go anywhere. She actually has a reason to scold people. Look, she went to the top lane to support. She was stunned by Ho Yi's big move. She's dead. She's dead. Qing Yaojin, it's all a pit. Livestream viewers, Qing Yaojin is right, huh? At least her tower is still there. The streamer is definitely not a pit. Playing support is so helpless. Protect our streamer. Handsome, come follow me. We can win. Tanguy and Handsome were in a team, so the other teammates couldn't hear it. She didn't mind it that much. She had encountered plenty of pitfalls in the game. At first, she thought that even if the nouveau riche was a little weak, as long as she protected him well, he could still take off. At least it wouldn't be too much of a scam. Now she felt that she was wrong. It was no longer important whether the nouveau riche was a dish or not. What was important was that the people she met were all noobs. 2 minutes later. Han Xian, support? Don't play support anymore. Do you even know how to play? Han Xian had died in the opposite red zone. He had been hammered to death by a few burly men. Handsome master, ignore him. Protect me. I will lead you to victory. Tanguy felt that this might be the innate confidence of a local tycoon. They were still in a lot of situations here. The other party's economy was ahead of theirs, so if the other party ganged up on them, they wouldn't be able to resist and wouldn't be able to leave. However, with her protection, it would not be easy to catch Lu Ban. Seeing that it was not easy to catch them, the other side changed their strategy and went for Angela in the middle. Angela was already going to support, but she didn't come to the bottom lane even once. Tanguy, they've all gone to the top lane. Let's go and push the tower. Handsome master, I think so too. Tanguy glanced at his calf that was about to enter the red zone and didn't say anything. After Qing Yaojin was hammered to death, Han Xian and Angela were also hammered to death one after another. Tanguy and her nouveau riche boss had pushed down 2 of their towers. Up. Chapter 4487. Han Exen, Archer and support don't know. Angela. They don't even know how to support. What a scammer. Qing Yaojing, boring. You guys are scammers too. Tenghua. Boss, the other side only knows how to kill people. They're not interested in towers. Handsome, you mean we'll push the tower? Tenghua, that's right. While they're not paying attention, we'll push the tower. On the other side, Ho Yi and Lu Shan are already arrogant. They've been killing minions but they don't push the tower. This means that they don't know how to play. The livestream audience. That's how it is for diamond players. If the streamer was a jungler or an archer, the game might have been over by now. But the boss isn't as scammer as imagined. At least he listens to the streamer's instructions. I've also realized that my teammates are worse. Wang Xiaojun had squatted several times before Tenghua and the boss, but Tenghua had been observing the small map. She never let the boss walk through the bushes first and always used her skills to scout. So Wang Xiaojun couldn't squat anyone. Until now, she and the boss had only died once after the game started. The others had died at least twice, and every time they died they would scold them for being scammers and noobs. Tenghua and the boss didn't mind. She had been protecting Handsome's development, giving him pointers on his positioning and DPS. It was also because the other side didn't know how to play that the boss really developed. They had already pushed down all the towers on the path of development. However, Han Exen and Angela were still dying one after another. It was the Calabash brothers who were trying to save their grandpa. Qing Yaojin was slightly better at playing. He might have seen something and was already leading the way. However, Tenghua's middle tower had been completely destroyed. It looked like they wanted to attack the middle lane. There were only Angela and Han Exen at home, so they definitely couldn't take it. So they went back and were barely able to defend. Up until now they were actually still at a disadvantage. But because the other side didn't know how to play, their minions weren't as good as theirs. The other side seemed to want to attack again. Angela and Han Exen died in the previous wave, but the boss was protected by her and didn't die. The other side was waiting for the middle lane to come over. They probably wanted to attack again. At this time, Qing Yaojin also turned back, planning to cut off the middle lane's minions. Unfortunately, he was caught and killed. Angela, let's throw it in. These two noobs won't be able to keep it. Han Exen, yes. Boring. However, Tenghua, the boss, and Qing Yaojin did not give up. The other side was very persistent and insisted on pushing that wave of attack. Tenghua saw the situation on the minimap and said, "Boss, let's defend one more time. Little Miyamoto is going to steal from the enemy's base." When fighting intensely, especially when a team did not pay attention to the minions, especially at this level, it was very easy to overlook the possibility of the minions sneaking in. Master Shuai didn't notice it himself, but after being reminded by Tenghua, he saw a small green line of soldiers that had almost reached the crystal on the opposite side. Handsome, got it. There's something wrong with the other party's eyes. Viewers in the live stream, the boss is humorous. Little Miyamoto is still the best. Good luck, Miyamoto. Miyamoto, it's all up to you whether or not the host can be led to victory by the boss. The live stream was flooded with comments. It was still Miyamoto who was the best. As Tenghua expected, when the other side attacked with all their might, they completely ignored the green line of soldiers that was almost at the crystal. They were still desperately trying to kill Tenghua and the boss. With Tenghua's protection, it was not easy to kill them. But with 2 people against 5, there was basically no chance of winning. At the top. Chapter 4488. The handsome boss had developed well. Before he died, he killed Ho Yi and Lu Shan on the opposite side. Monkey had already discovered that the minions were stealing the crystal and hurriedly retreated home. Thus, only Wang Xiaojun and Tachibana were left. However, new minions appeared on Tenghua's side. After clearing the minions with great difficulty, Monkey rushed back and found that the crystal on the opposite side had been stolen. Although they had expected this, the audience in the live stream couldn't help but laugh. The handsome boss was probably very happy. While choosing a hero in the next game, he sent another rocket to Tenghua. Playing this again in the next game. Sure enough, I need a good support. The audience in the live stream, don't you need a little Miyamoto who knows how to steal? For the rest of the morning, Tenghua played with the boss. The boss wasn't too bad, but he definitely didn't know how to play. With Tangua's guidance he could barely play, but occasionally he would get hot-headed and die inexplicably. If Tangua hadn't warned him, he would have rushed forward with all his might and died. But he wasn't angry. As long as Tangua could follow him and protect him, he was very happy. In the morning they won and lost, and of course they were scolded by their teammates many times. The handsome boss wouldn't scold them back. Tangua even suspected that he turned off typing and wasn't affected at all. At about noon, the handsome boss kept his promise and sent the remaining rockets to Tangua. This was the first time she received a rocket in one day, which was a gift of 10,000 yuan. She was still very happy. The handsome boss: "I'm not playing today. I'll ask you to rent a car when I'm free. Next time I'll play mage." Tangua: "Am I still playing support? You can do whatever you want. When I play archer you play support. When you play other roles you can choose whatever you want. Mages are a little short of mana. If you play jungler, except for the first mana, you can give me the rest. How about that?" "No problem." Tangua felt that this boss was a low-level player, so there was no harm in giving it to him. She could steal from the opposite side. "Then I'll come on time tomorrow morning." Handsome Master was probably happy. Before he left, he sent another wave of gifts to Tangua. The audience was just here to watch the show. The morning was supposed to be the time for Tangua to take care of her boss. Her solo show was only in the afternoon. Seeing that someone was giving gifts, many people came in. Especially when it was said that the streamer was assisting the boss. In fact, this was a very rare phenomenon. Although the boss was a noob, he was still very interesting. The next day, as soon as Tangua opened her live broadcast room, she received another rocket. Sure enough, it was from Handsome Master. This time Tangua chose to be a jungler, while Handsome chose Diao Chan. Tangua had heard the news of Diao Chan's death when she was still playing basketball. Of course she didn't panic at all. After all, she was the one playing the jungler. The rhythm was in her hands. When she was done with the blue, she went to the opposite side to reflect the red. Diao Chan had half of her health left, so she rushed over and stabbed the opposite mage to death. She returned to her own red zone and wandered around. Then she went to the archer's position and ate a wave of attacks. She couldn't catch anyone. After killing the dragon, she found that Diao Chan was about to die again, so she quickly rushed over. The opposite mage was very arrogant in his tower. It was very easy to catch him. "Handsome Master, high bait is good, right? As long as the opposite side comes to my tower and you catch him, the opposite mage will definitely die." The audience in the live broadcast room: "Boss is right. It makes sense. Pretend that you're not a noob." Tangua played jungler, so she could naturally control the rhythm. Even if this Diao Chan couldn't do it and still had to take mana, the rhythm still didn't collapse. At the top. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.